You know, it's interesting because they had never really talked to me about anything, basically, on the show.
Really?
For a long time. I just kind of showed up in the morning, and then it was about that time that I started being brought in, as in being treated as a real member of the show, and they did ask me. And he will tell you that my suggestion was Charlie Gibson.
Really?
That's right. Which is why she makes me give her 20% of my check.
That's right. That's right. No, seriously, you know, because he was in Washington, which meant that every now and then when Steve Bell, back then Steve Bell was doing the news during our show, and you would fill in for Steve Bell now and then, and we used to see him and we used to think that he really had something because, I mean, I'll say, close your ears, because he's, you know, he's bright, so he's credible, and you can trust when he sits down to do an interview that he's going to do it right. But at the same time, there's a little boyishness, sometimes brattiness, but usually boyishness. And that was a great combination. And so we really encouraged the executive producer to bring him up and have him fill in sometime. And finally, a day came when David and Steve were both gone, so the protocol didn't get stepped on, and you came up. And everybody loved him. He just was really great.
She's very nice about that story always, and I wrote it just that way. No, they did throw my name out, and I always thought that they were going to get, you know, some big person, you know, Rock Hard Place or, you know, some star. And
Rock Hard.
But we are basically an informationally based and news-based program. And so I think they finally decided that they wanted somebody from the news department, and they took a shot.
But they couldn't have somebody, you know, really stern, because it's
I'm telling you,
in the morning.
It's a tough position because I think it's like, I know I'm on the air every day, you guys are on the air every day, but you guys are even different because you're on the air when people are brushing their teeth, they're finding their underwear. I mean, I wake up to you, and we were all talking earlier that they're different parts. Like, we know by the time Spencer comes on, you should have done this by the time. And if Irma's on, you are way late already. You know, I mean, it's just.
People say, I watch you for 22 minutes every morning, and it's the same 22 minutes because their alarm clock goes off at the same time. You get the kids on the school bus at the same time. And you're right. That is a time of day that you wouldn't have your best friend into the house.
Absolutely.
The dishes are not done. The beds are unmade. You don't have your game face on yet.
And the kids are great at that time.
Yeah. And we ask you to bring us into the house. And I think that does require something slightly different.
What does it require, Charlie?
Joan.
No, it requires approachable people. People that you can feel comfortable with. And, you know, people say to my husband all the time, what's Joan really like? And he says, she's exactly like what you see. She's no different on the air than she is in real life. And people walk up to me everywhere I go. I'm completely approachable.
Right.
And I think that, you know, they always say it's like you live down the block or something.
Do they want to sit down and talk to you about their kids, Joan?
You know, it's funny because I've always said that my children are going to grow up with the most distorted view of this world because they're going to think that everyone says hello, that everyone sits down at your table and talks about their kids and their life, and they do. I mean, I hear about everybody's children.
Now, was it a conscious decision? Because there were days in television where when a woman became pregnant, they tried to hide it, and that wasn't really discussed. But we've sort of grown with your pregnancies, every one of them.
Well, our coffee table is real low.
She grew with them, too. Right?
Yeah, boy, did I. Our coffee table is real low. So you can't really hide it.
Yeah.
And I remember when Florence Henderson came on, and she said, when I was on the Today Show, I mean, I was never allowed to show that I was pregnant. And the last day, right before I left for my pregnancy leave, I stood up, and it was like a big deal that I stood up and they saw that I was pregnant. And I've gotten more letters from women. The thing that I like that they say the most is, thank you for just staying on and doing the job so that, you know, my husband or my boss or whatever realizes that the, you know, the brain doesn't start to dysfunction. when your belly grows, the brain stays the same. You can still function in a job.
But during those pregnancy days, though, weren't you exhausted? Because the hours you all keep, I mean, you get up in the middle of the night.
Good practice for breastfeeding during the night.
We'll be back in a moment. When we come back, live TV at its best. Back in a moment. Being on live TV isn't always as easy as it looks. There are moments when you just want to say, okay, this is a mess. We all know it. Just go ahead and change the channel. But of course, you keep going even though disaster is unavoidable. Watch as Joan, always the trooper, handles an audio problem very diplomatically.